My name is Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, Member of Parliament for the righteous people of Ofoase-Ayirebi. Well, I don't think it matters where you are. If you understand what you are looking out for, you will see it. I think what has been missing over the years is the level of candor and collaboration that we in the political class should bring to bear on the work that we do. So sometimes you find the government trying so hard to hide what everybody knows is the situation. And even when things are obvious, refusing to listen. Those are the things that are missing. Other than that, it doesn't matter where you are sitting. And I believe that if we can do more of that, our politics will be smoother. Let me speak briefly to the inflation story. Remember in 2016, when we were fighting for power, inflation was about 15%. And when we won power, we were able to bring it down to about 7.8, 7.1 before 2020. By 2020, because of the global challenges, the global cost of living crisis, it went up to about 53%. And we started an effort to bring it back down. That's what brought it down to 23% or so by the time we were leaving power. And it was projected that by the end of 2025, it will come down to about average of 11 for the year. So you can tell what the story has been. I think that sometimes when we talk about the economy, people are looking to indicators. Indicators tell a story, but they are like miniskirts. They hide some of the most essential things. They show things that you want to show. The real story is in the lived experience of the people. So today if you say inflation is 3.8, and when people go out there, they are having to endure a high cost of living, the people will tell you that your figures look a bit different from the reality. We don't have to say it, and we don't have to get into a debate about whether the inflationary figures are correct or not. No, the lived experiences of the people. Today if you say the economy is stable, and yet you can't pay cocoa farmers their 3,100 that we left for them, and you have to reduce it to 2.5. We don't need to argue much. The cocoa farmer himself will tell you that this is your stability that you're talking about. They are not seeing it clearly. So I always say that the methods matter, the costs matter, and the sustainability matters. But the most important thing is the lived experience of the people in the country. I think the biggest weakness in our cocoa sector is the kind of ecosystem we are creating to make cocoa farming attractive to the farmer. If the ecosystem is not one that makes cocoa farming attractive to the farmer, very few people will go into cocoa farming. And the ecosystem comprises a number of things. The price that you are paying for it, the support that you are giving to them directly, indirectly, the support you are giving through the improvement of their roads and other ancillary facilities. So if you don't do all of these things to make it attractive for a farmer to go into cocoa, and somebody else will take the same parcel of land and give him more money for galamsey, he would shift from cocoa to galamsey. That is why it is heartbreaking that the government is undermining the already fragile ecosystem by first of all reducing what the cocoa farmer is taking home. It's now cutting back on cocoa roads, that they won't do cocoa roads through cocoa board, they should go and do it through the roads ministry. There was a deliberate reason for which it was put under a cocoa board, because they had clarity on where a lot of cocoa was being grown and needed to be evacuated, and therefore the roads to do that. If you now take it out and say you are going to give it to the roads ministry, you are no longer going to pay them even the 3,100 that Akufo-Addo left for you, then you are gradually undermining the ecosystem, and that is why going forward a lot less people will be interested in farming cocoa. And that's why we are urging the government to quickly reverse this decision. If you can't pay them the 3.6 that you promised, or even the 6.5 that you promised when you were campaigning, the 3.6 you announced it when you won power, the 6.5 is what you promised them. If you can't pay any of those two, don't rob them of what Akufo-Addo left for you, which was 3,100. Pay them their 3.1 at least, so that we don't have more people leaving the cocoa farms and selling those farms to galamsey operators, etc. That would be disastrous for our economy. I don't have data on it as I'm speaking to you now, but I am not sure that the current administration is suggesting that no cocoa roads were constructed. They are admitting that a lot of cocoa roads were done, but there's debt because the revenues are not coming, and therefore they want to shift the cocoa roads back to the road sector. And that's what we're saying undermines the entire ecosystem that was put in place. It's a failure of government economic thinking that has led to this. They were promising 6,500 cedis. What was that based on? What was the analysis and calculation and the simulations they did based on which they promised 6,500 cedis? And then they won power and said they can only pay 3,600 cedis. And then midway through the year, before the year ends, they now say that they've even cut that one to 2,500. If we are not careful at this rate, before the year ends, they'll come back and say they will only be able to afford to pay 1,500. And that shows a failure of their forecasting and their trading models that they are using. And that is why we as a caucus are asking the government to take the sector a lot more seriously than they are doing currently. Else, in the medium term, the industry will collapse. The structure is fit for purpose. There's no problem with it. The problem is the decision they took, one, to move away from the forward sales to do more spot sales. That's the first problem. And two, the decision they took to pump dollars into the economy to bring the dollar or the cedi to 10 cedis to a dollar. Remember when we started drawing their attention in Parliament, they were literally insulting us that, you know, Abba, Papa, Abba, we are jealous of them. And we told them that this thing you are doing to have consequences because your exports will now be overvalued, to now be expensive. This is where we are. And these decisions are the things that have caused the current crisis they have. It has nothing to do with debt they inherited or the fact that the sector is not liberalized. That's not the problem. The sector that has not been liberalized managed to move prices from 475 in 2016 to 3,100 to 2024 by the time we were leaving power. The same sector that is not liberalized because they were using a particular trading module. You decided to change it and you're having problems. Don't blame it on the liberalization or the lack of it. I don't think so. The cocoa sector, like many of our sectors, has had issues. The media sector has issues. Several other sectors have issues. But you have to balance the economic interests with the livelihoods of people at any point in time. You can't swing too much into one direction. And that's how successive governments have tried to solve the problem while managing the current situation. It is just unfortunate that this government just misconceptualized how it should be done and has messed it up. And I think the earlier they admit it and come to the table with solutions, rather than today they say debt, tomorrow they say liberalization, the next time they say global market price, they themselves are looking confused on what the real cause is. And we are telling you that it's only two things that have caused it. So instead of dancing around, they've got to pay attention. Remember, we had this debate in the chamber where we said that instead of dancing around in the chamber at small successes, we have to sit down and pay attention and do the detailed structural work. Nobody paid attention to us. Today, look at where we are.
Structural work, what did you suggest to the committee?
So, for example, in the area of cocoa, there was a particular program for improving the cocoa sector agreed between us and IMF. The first question we should be asking is, have they implemented the program? No, they didn't. They threw it away that they come to do a reset. And in the reset, caused these problems. Argument is that, distant argument, stop dancing around over small successes. Pay attention to the structural reforms that are required. For example, in the case of Cocoa Board, the program agreed between Cocoa Board and the IMF, the cocoa sector turnaround strategy, and implement that one. I think the bigger challenge we have is the high informal nature of our economy. Once you have a very highly informal economy, a lot of things slip through the cracks, and you will therefore not be able to get from them what is due them. And so the efforts at ensuring that we achieve more formalization of our economy are the efforts that we need to deepen. That way, your chances of catching the optimal level of productivity into the tax basket will be higher. We've relied too much on commodity prices. Currently, part of the problem you're having is a commodity price challenge. In fact, currently, they've been relying heavily on gold prices. Not much has changed in the economy. It's just the gold prices that have gone up, and then our gold purchase program that we put in place. That's what they've been relying on. When you rely heavily on commodity prices, when commodity prices fail you, and you are not getting a positive balance of payment, you have no choice than to go and borrow money from the IMF. So that is one of the issues. The other issue is also that domestically we've had too many fiscal slippages, where government expenditure that it has committed to is so rigid and is far ahead of revenue. And we've just discussed the fact that revenue is constrained because the economy is also very informal. So domestically you have your own challenges as well. That is also sometimes a product of political or policy failure. And I think what we have to do going forward is to depoliticize a lot of the economic conversations and get more technical, so that across the divide we can agree. That's why, for example, I've commended the finance minister on the commitment controls that he introduced. Technically, it's very sound, and it will help the Ghanaian economy. I've also introduced a bill in Parliament called the No Plan, No Cash Bill, which, regardless of MPP NDC, will be very good for the Ghanaian economy. We should go more technical in this area, regardless of, who is in power, and depoliticize. And if we do that, in addition to the other things I've spoken about, we should get to a certain point of sustained stability.
Can you highlight on the No Plan, No Cash?
That bill, essentially, if passed by Parliament, will ensure that any ministry, department, or agency, or district assembly that doesn't have its plan certified by the NDPC should not get money from the finance ministry or use IGF to fund that plan. In other words, we will only be using state money to focus on what has been approved by the NDPC. Then all of these phantom projects and ideas that people come up with when they win power or when they are appointed in various offices, they are on a frolic of their own. All of those ones will cease. The little money we have will now be concentrated on achieving the National Development Plan that has been approved by the NDPC. Absolutely. So what it will do is that if it is not in the National Development Plan, we are not funding it. Then the little resources we have will focus on funding the National Development Plan's execution. We have not said we don't understand. We understand what they are trying to do, and we are saying to them that what they are trying to do will not solve the problem. The 24-hour economy that they promised was one job, 3 shifts, 3 people. People working around the cycle to boost productivity and jobs. And we have said that the first thing you need for this to survive is demand. If there is demand, private sector on their own will even produce 24 hours. I was telling a friend that if you have a cold store, because he runs a cold store, I said if you have a cold store and by 11 p.m. there are people who have queued up with money buying, will you close your cold store? You won't. So it's demand. What the government has to do is to focus on ensuring that the ecosystem for generating demand is high. If you don't do that, don't waste your time. No producer will produce just in bulk and pack it up when there's no demand. And these are the things they are not fixing. You have to stimulate demand. And when demand has been stimulated, you will now deal with easing the production constraints. Electricity, security, all of those things, because there's already demand. If you go and do these things and there's no demand for it, you are back to square one. And so we understand what they are trying to do. What they are trying to do is that they are establishing what they call a 24-hour economy authority that will employ a few big people in the NDC, but it won't deliver 24-hour economy. And that is the point we are making to them, that you're going to spend all this money. People will take salaries, buy cars, travel across the world and the country, and they will still not deliver, because what you need to deliver, you haven't answered it. And we are telling them in all humility that focus on stimulating demand. If instead of stimulating demand, you are doing the opposite, you are sterilizing money out of the economy, how are you going to get people having money to be able to demand? So that's the debacle in which they find themselves. And my prayer is that this government will listen. They still have time. If they listen, they'll be able to correct some of these things.
That's right.
If you come to Ofoase-Ayirebi, you will see, first of all, roads. Places where we didn't have roads, we now have tarred roads. We're still even going on with the road construction, even today as I'm speaking to you. You see lots of new schools that are being built. In phase 1, we did about 6 schools. Phase 2, I'm doing 6 schools currently. You will find new medical theaters, state-of-the-art medical theaters that have been built to be able to give our people health care. You'll find over 700 beneficiaries of my scholarship program who are being supported. Some are in medical school, some are in law school. We're trying to add to the human capital of the place. You'll find several people who've been given apprenticeship opportunities, some have graduated and are running their own businesses, some are still undergoing apprenticeship training. A lot of investment in the quality of life of people there. I think what has happened is a failure of intelligence collaboration between Ghana and its neighboring countries. We used to have a system called the Accra Initiative that allowed for intelligence collaboration. Today it's no longer working. We should ask the government why it's not working. The National Intelligence Bureau that was supposed to be doing domestic intelligence, now they've stopped, and all they are doing is that they are arresting officials from the previous administration. So the intelligence gathering function, we are not sure if they are doing it anymore. If they were, they'll be able to collaborate with their Burkinabe partners, and places where Ghanaian traders require safe passage, they could have assisted in providing safe passage. And we think, this is why Dr. Bawumia in his statement he issued said that we have to strengthen the counterterrorism architecture that we are supposed to be operating. We have heard the president announce today that they are now looking to send a helicopter to evacuate those who have been injured to come for treatment in Ghana. As welcome as that is, if we had put a bit of this effort into intelligence collaboration, they could have avoided what happened. It's so unfortunate. 7 people, these are breadwinners in their family, lost their lives. When we complete our policy propositions, we will spend a lot of time articulating them. But if you go back to our 2024 manifesto, the part that deals with the economy, we were very clear at that time that what we needed to do was to cut about 3% of GDP and make it available to the private sector, do more public-private collaboration so that things get done, but the taxpayer doesn't have to pay for it out of the national treasury. It was just one of the major things. Remember, we also talked about a credit system in this country so that people could generate a lot of demand, even if they didn't have the income today, based on a strong credit system. Now, what that generation of do is that it will push up productivity. That is the kind of thing that can create a creative for our economy, not just forming a secretariat. It's a credit system that allows people to produce because there's high demand. And when people are producing, they'll start producing around the clock. So there were a lot of economic ideas which we put in the manifesto. We are just setting up our policy unit. We will review them, and then we'll come back to the table as we inch towards 2028. I think the MPP has elected Dr. Bawumia as our flag bearer. He's going through the process of leading the reorganization of the party. We wish him well. We have every confidence in him. We know he will do very well to help us reorganize for the election 2028. And we encourage all patriots to come on board fully supportive so that we get to the promised land together.